Wait until my dogs bark again when UPS actually shows up. That was FedEx.
And we're live.
Wait until my dogs bark again when UPS actually shows up. That was FedEx.
We are live now.
Oh, I gotta mute this. Hold on. How do you mute it on this?
We are live now.
Oh, I gotta mute this. Hold on.
Sorry for our technical difficulties. We are brand new to this.
Why can I hear myself? Is that better? Is it good?
I mean, on my side is good.
It's good now. It was like reverberating, and I just kept hearing myself say the same thing over top of itself. So,
all right. Welcome to our first episode of Last Pack Magic. I'm Francis, and this is Kevin.
Hello.
Well, let's start off. Well, before we start, this episode is sponsored, of course, by KD Collectibles. If you want to be a Pokemon master, you collect or you grade with KD Collectibles. You know why Ash took 20 years to become a Pokemon master?
He didn't grade enough cards, obviously.
He didn't grade with KD Collectibles, but...
Is this your first ever anything on here? No, I was a part of a podcast for a year previously with PSA Canada prior to them being acquired by PSA. So, but I never did anything on my own YouTube page. So yes, this is my first time.
We're gonna get tons of different podcast videos, information. We're gonna try to, educate and get a little bit more insight on the market, grading cards, and just have a good time, really. Because we talk about Pokemon like every day for hours, and we should just let everybody hear what we talk about. Well, not everything, but some stuff.
Definitely not everything, but
well, to get to know us a bit more, Kevin, when does your journey start with Pokemon?
Like as a business or as a hobby?
Hobby first, and then business.
Hobby first, like obviously every kid, my generation, your generation collected as a kid, whether that was Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh. So I did that, and then grew up a little bit, stopped collecting, got into sports cards when I was like 14, 15, as a poor kid, and then got into Pokemon again, I want to say 2014 or 2015, mostly because the sports market was just super saturated. So I was like, there's breaking in sports and there was all these other things. So I transitioned over to TCG because it was what I knew from when I was a kid. And then after that, kind of just took off 2016, 2017, just collecting. And then I got into a car accident when I was in 2018 and was off work for 7 or 8 months and just kind of started doing it more, started flipping some stuff, bought a couple first edition Charizards, and then I graded them and then offered to send some other cards for some other people. And after 2 months, I was sending 300 to 400 cards for other people and my 10 cards. And then I just kind of scaled that up. And in 2021, I went full time into Pokemon and cards in general, more so on the grading side. But yeah, that's the journey so far. And now it's 1,000% grading, literally nonstop every single day.
Was that your first time grading a card? Was that specific time?
The first time I ever graded a card, I was on Facebook Marketplace and I saw somebody selling a small collection of first edition Blastoise, first edition Charizard, Zapdos, and a couple other ones. Drove from Toronto to London to buy it. While I was off work, my wife was just like, "You do what you gotta do. This is really dumb." Jumped in the car, drove, bought it, came home, admired it. I'd been buying a lot of collections at that time, but this was the first real spend, which is funny to say, but in 2027, or I think it was 2018, it was $1,700 I paid for the lot on Facebook. Drove down, picked it up. It's funny to think that was a lot of money nowadays with just the Charizard being multiple thousands of that, but yeah, I picked it up, got home, and I was like, oh, I think I should grade this. So I sent it with a colleague of mine in the U.S., Charlie from Ludkins U.S., not to be confused with Ludkins UK, who scammed a bunch of people. He ran the U.S. branch of that, and they were a PSA middleman. And at the time, I sent it, and then I was like, oh, like nobody really does this in Canada like properly, other than
Not for TCG at least.
yeah, no one for TCG. There was always PSA Canada out in Halifax. It was previously run by Len Potty. Super old school dude, great guy, but very, very old school in his ways as well. Everything was done paper and pen. So I was just like, you know
That was
what?
a
Like, I should
hobby back
offer this
then,
to
though.
some people. I was adminning the group at the time. I think the group only had 700 or 800 members at that point. But I was like, I'm going to send a submission. Does anyone want to throw some cards in? And they did. And then I sent one more after that, and then everything started to slow down at PSA. One of my first order, I think it was like my 5th or 6th order that I sent, was one of the ones that got locked up at PSA for like 15 months. Like with my customers, like at that point they were just friends who were like, oh yeah, I'll send some cards, but locked up for 15 months, couldn't get them back. Eventually they came back, but it was a tough time for sure. But yeah, that was the first time, was grading a first edition Charizard. So kind of sweet.
You get a 10?
No. I did get an 8 though. So I mean that's pretty good. I ended up selling that Charizard 8 days before it went crazy. So I sold it for I think 13,000 because we bought a new place and we were moving. So I never wanted to sell it, but I had to we bought appliances with that money, and then 8 days later one sold on eBay for $43,000. So I was like, well, that was rough.
Yeah. At that time though, that 13,000 seemed very, very good though, right? So
I mean, I use my fridge every day, so I guess it's okay. But
and
how about you? How'd you start?
Though,
when did you get into it?
I've always been in Pokemon since I was a kid. I'm quite old, so like I remember a kid buying Pokemon Blue, playing it, getting the first ever packs. I remember like there used to be a store in Pacific Mall.
Oh yeah,
collecting store.
Yeah,
so I bought I bought my packs there and everything like that. It was crazy. I remember packing my first ever first edition Charizard there as well too, and I sold it back to them for $50. Big money.
I mean, back then, to think you could sell it back to them, because like packs were like
was crazy.
Packs were like $2.25 back then. I remember to sell that for $50, that was probably pretty cool. But
it was. I
mean, the real winner was the people who didn't open packs.
Right, as a kid, it was pretty crazy. But I collected throughout, but like not like heavy, right? I buy a pack here and there. I see like a random like blisters at Walmart. I'll just pick them up and just open them, not really caring on what it is and stuff like that. But then like during just before COVID happened is when I started going back into Pokemon pretty heavy. I would say. I think it's because like the game, the Sword and Shield game came out. I was playing that quite a bit and everything, and then it's just started like, oh, I love Pokemon. Let me look at cards to see what my cards had and everything like that. And then I started looking at the cards to see like, oh, there's value in this. I remember seeing, Facebook and seeing people selling, cards for like 50-60% of what market is on eBay, and then be like, hey, there's like, you can make a little money in between. So then I started, doing that a little bit and started picking up into like singles. And then some random dude's name called Kevin Douglas came up in my Facebook feed and it's like grading cards. I'm like, what is this grading cards thing? So then I started like digging deeper into there and seeing like, what is this whole grading cards thing and everything? And like, it was like eye-opening, like the whole different market, whole different section and everything like that, and how much money is in that as well. And then I started, of course, grading my first cards with you way back with Evolutions Charizard with 2018, 19, something like that.
I was gonna say, Francis, you were probably you were definitely my biggest customer for a while just before COVID. And then they closed.
But yeah, like, and then like it just spiraled into like a business, right? Where like I'm grading cards consistently, buying singles, sealed, and then now it's just like everything, right? Like just
left me as your grader, came back to me now as your grader. You know,
different. The times were a little bit different, right? They had a little different things, but it's like always the option there, always what it is, right? It's just a matter of like
there
how
does
the
come a
market.
point where it doesn't make sense to go through a middleman. I've always told everybody that, despite it being my business, it does make sense at some point to do it yourself versus I mean, I say that there's people who grade 300 cards a month with me and they could easily do it themselves and save themselves maybe $2 a card, maybe a week would be quicker, 2 weeks sometimes. But benefit wise, I think it outweighs it when I'm able to do stuff like I am now, where I can still submit. Like I see a question saying, do the tariff pause impact you? No. Essentially, PSA granted me the ability to still submit directly to. Well, everything has to be routed through PSA Canada, so it goes back to what it was previously, where essentially they do it's a
Like a
special
hub,
process to avoid tariffs. But in doing that, like I have access to my account, so I can still submit, and they just kind of funneled all the business in Canada through I think there's 12 approved dealers. Me being a platinum dealer, and I know Luke Quach of Lil Buddha is out in Alberta as the other platinum, and I think two others are platinum as well, but I don't know their name. One in Quebec and one in the GTA, which I do know that name, but I'm not going to say it because they're a competitor, so it makes no sense to do so. But yeah, so it doesn't impact us. All submissions that I submit are 100% tariff free. With that being said, I had a massive charge last week that had to get negotiated with Canada border, but they took it off once they realized what it was, and I gave them the paperwork they needed. But yeah, at some point it does make sense to do it yourself if you have the time and want to deal with it. Some people
I think
don't.
there's like a level of what it is, right? So like I think when you're sending in 20, 30 cards a month or whatever, like a lower end amount, going through you is 100% where you should do, right? And I think once you hit that, let's say, for example, 300 cards a month, sometimes sending it through yourself sometimes is a little bit better. But once you hit the next on top of that, you're sending 1,000 cards a month. And I think it goes back right to you where you need to send to, because that time for someone to input all the cards and everything like that, put them in like all the sleeves, top loaders, everything, or the semi-rigids, package it nicely, and all that customs information, everything like that wise, it becomes not beneficial at that level to go through yourself anymore. And going through you is actually better once you hit that next level.
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on if you value your time. Like, if you're fine sitting in, like, I would say the vast majority, even if you know cards really well, it's going to take you a while to input cards because there's nuances that you don't know. Whereas I would comfortably say 99% of the cards I deal with, I can input in under 5 to 7 seconds. So like I do around 300 cards an hour when I'm like kind of dialed in inputting.
So
It's a lot of data entry, and it's not fun by any means, but like it's definitely a situation where like if you value your time, then it's always going to make sense to not do it unless you're like you said, that I would say like 70 to 100 cards every like 6 weeks probably warrants you to just do it yourself, because even if you're doing that many cards, you'd learn the nuances of inputting pretty quick, so you would be able to do it yourself. The only benefit that I provide at that point is that in situations like now where orders are getting backlogged and it takes 5 to 6 weeks sometimes to get your cards into research and ID, I bypass all that as a dealer. The day they get our cards at PSA, they're opening the packages and inputting them. That changed slightly now, obviously, with the tariffs, because there's special paperwork that requires additional steps in the process. So it's delayed about a week, but it's still more significantly faster than if you were to mail your cards to California right now versus me mailing my cards to New Jersey or to California. There'd be a significant time difference in getting those into the system. Once they're in the system, it's pretty standard. There's no first in, first out. They might grab your order day one and grade the whole thing and put it through into assembly, and then it might sit in assembly for 3 weeks before it goes anywhere. Or it could sit in grading for a month and fly through the next steps in 48 hours. It's completely random at that point.
Well, to give you an idea, of course, we know a lot of people in the hobby and stuff like that, right? So many of the people that submitted cards in December, late December, early January, their cards are still in research and ID, versus with you, they were like, what? February's already done.
So I had one that got caught November. That one took a while. I think I got it back 2 weeks ago. And it's bound to happen. Like, you send 60 submissions a month, there's always going to be an outlier, and the customers that get hit with the outlier, unfortunately, are always going to remember that took a long time. Jacob, for one, always sends in November, and his submission always seems to be one that gets caught. But there's also a lot that happens in the background that people don't see, of like being able to reach out directly to your rep and say, hey, this order is approaching the estimated time. Can we do something to push it? And then my rep takes that information directly from PSA and starts contacting the people that they need to accelerate that order when they can. Obviously, situations where backlogs and stuff happen, or changes in processes, such as when they hard stopped grading the metal Charizards from the UPCs, like that was something that, like, it literally just froze all the orders that I had there. Even if they were in QA checks, they went backwards back into grading and got delayed, and everything had to be taken out of the cases to ensure that they weren't sent out, because it was just like a hard stop. Like, this is damaging the card. We need to stop grading them. And now, even then, they came back with new stuff, and then they're still damaging them. So now, if you submit metal cards, there's no warranty or anything. It's just submitted, and I had to sign a liability waiver saying PSA has no liability. I pass that on to all my customers. I've told everybody, like, you submit metal cards. It's
the Mew UPC ones are pretty good. The Mew UPC metal ones are not bad.
UPC, yeah, but like I've gotten so many messages where people get back at 8 and they send me a picture, and on the back there's a paint chip, and they send me a video of before it going, and there's no paint chip, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, the process to seal these slabs is violent. Like, it is violent vibration that heats up the plastic to seal it. So, like, it's very it's not, and people say, oh, like the it's more violent than on a card. Well, yeah, like, you're talking painted metal versus cardboard that has like ink on it. Like, ink isn't going to chip off, but paint definitely will. So
yeah,
there's the risks with that, but the benefit of going through me or going through an authorized dealer is having those direct ability to reach out to somebody. Whereas if you try to call PSA, most times their phone lines are cooked by 10 a.m. Right? So by the time you get through, you're never going to get an answer that you need. Right? So
possible. Yeah. But what do you think about this market now and grading? Like, the challenge with this grading. Of course, time is one of them, where like a card, you sent in January, like the Drowsy, for example, it could be like, PSA 10 was like 1,200, 1,300, and now it's dropped down to what, 1,000 or so, right? Like, what do you think?
I mean, 1,000 in my head, 1,000 for what I would consider a hollow is incredible, and also like completely outlandish. What?
It's hard to grade.
It's hard to grade, but like, a friend of mine sold a PSA 10 base set 2 Charizard for $12,000, and that's impossible to grade. It's not hard to grade. There's probably, like, I personally know somebody who bought 300 copies of Drowsy at $4. So it's not it's just that people weren't grading them because they weren't $1,000, right? It's taking, I want to say it's almost like exploiting the market a little bit by grading this stuff, and the pops are low strictly because people aren't grading them. Yes, they're hard to grade. Yes, it's not easy, but like, if you buy 300 of a card, you're gonna probably be able to grade a 10, especially a card that's only 2 years old.
I mean, like, buying a lot or submitting a lot doesn't mean you'll get a lot of 10s. Like, I remember, I picked up a lot of cards for you to, submit and everything like that. And when I get people that give you, 100 cards, and I look at them, I'm like, I don't know if you should be grading those and stuff like that. So
I
what
always
do you
tell people
think?
never grade more than like 4 of the same card in a row. Because not that there's bias, because every card is supposed to get looked at as its own individual card, but like if you're a grader sitting there and you open an order and it's 300 special delivery Charizards, like
I know that feeling.
yeah, like I've had multiple yourself. I had another customer submit a significant amount of just the special delivery Charizard, which again is a hard card to grade by itself. Um, and they would get, I want to say the person who submitted like 330 got like 14 tens.
Well, it's like if you look at, just a human nature wise, right? If you submit 100 cards and then the first card you look at, you give that a 9, every card that's worse looking than that is going to be either 8 or a 9, right?
And if you look at it the wrong way and you say, oh, you say that's a 10 and it's a bad looking, or I guess the other way, if you overgrade it or undergrade it, then everything else is going to, and it's a clean card and you say it's a 9, then everything else is going to be lower than that. Especially since half the special delivery Charizards that people have creases on them anyway. So
yeah, they're pretty bad. So kind of like more like a tip and tricks, and don't grade 300 of the same card together all at once.
I mean, I say that like I'm a bulk grader by default. Like I send hundreds of the same card all the time. like just next to me. Like I personally do it because it makes no difference to me whether it's a 9 or a 10 because I don't really sell anything. And and doing that, like I graded like 100 of these the Paldea chest Pikachus. But I mean these are easier than a Charizard, right? Like I think I got 1 8 and like 85 tens, or so at that point like it doesn't make a difference, but I also know what I'm looking for. Like most people, like the person, for example, the person who graded that 300 order of just special delivery Charizards, that was their first ever time grading cards. They were a sneaker guy who used a bot to buy a ton of those Charizards, and then he's just like, I'm just going to grade them all, and he sent them to me sealed, and I was like, I'm not looking at these for you. I'm going to open them and I'm going to send them to PSA. And he's like, yeah, no problem. Probably regretted that when he got his invoice and then got his cards back. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's like a higher, like in this market, is it higher risk to grade currently right now? Or do you think it's pretty much the same risk as
I mean, it depends what you're grading. Pokemon, I always think if you know what you're doing and you have an okay reputation, most cards you can get out of, even if you get a PSA 9 with covering the grading cost. Sometimes even an 8 depending on the card. So all you're gonna lose is time. You buy a $50 card, you grade it for $30 and it gets a 9, you sell it for 85, $90. All you did was lose a month. Yes, you lost the opportunity cost of selling that card for $50 and using that money for something else. But on the plus side, you get a 10 and you sell for $800 or something random like that right now. There's a lot of risks on that side of things. Sports is different. Sports, you don't get a 10, you're cooked, game over. Like you're 8, 9 over. Like you're definitely not going to get your money out of it on 8s or 9s in sports. Like you lost your money. It's probably worth more raw than it was graded, right? At a 9.
like,
So
for my side, I also see it from like even I'm going to a lot of conventions now. I see it from like convention to convention, like cards are fluctuating in prices up and down 20-30% every week. Sometimes even like I remember when I was in Vegas for the front row cards or whatever it is, the Saturday a card would be selling for like 2,500, and then a Sunday it's 3,000. So it's like the fluctuations for cards in this current market is like crazy.
I would never recommend anyone to buy a card right now to hold on to, whether that's with exception. I would say X and Y full arts are probably still underpriced. Whenever those come through me, I try to offer my customers whatever grading credit or
You don't
cash.
want to buy my Drowsy PSA 10?
No, see, that's the thing. Like, especially when you get into graded stuff, like you couldn't force me to buy modern as an investment. Like, I have modern, but like most times my intention with modern is to sell it if I'm gonna, whether that mean like bulk I do a lot of stuff in the US. I have a lot of colleagues in the US that I try to give them lower end inventory that they can move and trade into more nichey stuff that I collect, like staff promos and rarities and high grade gold stars and stuff that I think is more niche but also a lot more expensive.
Yeah, because like for me, when I'm grading, as a business, for me it's like liquidity is what I look for, right? And then the XY stuff, EX era, even WotC stuff as well too. They're, for me, it's like a little bit slower moving than a PSA 10 Drowsy or even like a Mr. Mime from 151 PSA 10. Like every time I get one of those in PSA 10, like they're gone within a week. Versus, a PSA 9 Stormfront Charizard. Like I had one for 6 months and I was $100 below market and it doesn't sell.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
like,
liquidity wise, modern's wild. Like people, but people are also a lot more willing to buy a $200 card and sell it for $210 than spend $1,200 and try to nickel and dime to get 1,300, right? So the game of percentages is a lot different when you're looking at modern and vintage, because vintage you shouldn't be trying to flip most times. I wouldn't say, unless you get it like a crazy deal or you buy it raw and grade it and you make that gain yourself, then that's different. But like modern you can buy cards, like you said, you can buy cards on Friday, sell them on Saturday for more, and do it all the time, and they move quick because all those people are doing it the same way. They want to move their cards, they want to get out of them, and then move on to the next thing, get the next card, and go that way, right? So
I just feel like as like the new collectors that come in, there's a less and less and less going backwards to collect previous cards. Of course, first edition Charizard is a grail, everybody loves it. Gold Star Umbreon, a grail, everybody wants it. But like the people that are like in their 20s, teens, whatever it is, that are in SV right now, they will see like a 151 Mr. Mime or like, like the new Terrastorm or the new Prismatic Umbreons. They want those. Those are their chase cards, right? So they're willing to spend money on them versus even going back to Sword and Shield. There's like a significantly less people wanting Sword and Shield versus Scarlet and Violet. And then you go back one set even further back, Sun and Moon, there's even less people wanting Sun and Moon versus.
I mean, I agree, but I don't, because like if you look at it from purely a money to invest situation, the people with the money to truly invest more often than not in and buy without the need to have to sell. Like I can buy stuff at a point where like I don't need to sell it immediately. Those people get into vintage. They move into vintage. It's the same thing as sports. It takes longer. The cycle is always the same. It happens the exact same way with Pokemon. It's like clockwork every 5 years. Actually, it's technically every 4, where everything balloons and then PSA cards balloon for modern, and then all of a sudden money starts pulling out of modern and going into vintage. And that's because probably the people who know to flip those cards are buying them, flipping them, and then using that modern to pump, or money to pump the vintage market. And the vintage market, when it pumps, it doesn't drastically change compared to the modern. Like,
well, I mean, we talk about this in our private chats all the time about modern versus WotC vintage and what's better to get and hold and things like that. But like I always feel like WotC or like vintage, because I think vintage goes newer than WotC nowadays. Are safer if they're a high grade and sought after cards, right? I think there's a big mistake on all WotC, all vintage are worth more.
I would say anything under a 9 outside of like incredibly niche items that are like
the gold
extremely
stars,
rare,
Charizards and things like that, right?
I'm even talking like trophies and
those could be like nothing. Those are just authenticated and those would sell.
Yeah, like the grade doesn't matter when the card is rare enough. But I would never, like PSA 8 gold stars, I probably get 20 to 30 through me per week coming back from PSA. Not big one, not gold, like not Charizards, not Rayquazas, but like the 3 dogs that kind of stuff. Like I would not say that is like a PSA 8 is rare in that. But I mean, at one point I was getting back 60 to 100 Umbreons, like Moonbreons a week for people, right? So, and 98 of them would be 10s. So for a modern card to be $4,000, or it's probably come down a little bit, seems crazy to me, because you can buy very rare, very hard to grade cards under pop 100 for well below $5,000, and like
Well, I think
that's
it's also,
actually rare.
but like the demand for those modern cards are significantly more, right? For every one person that wants that pop 100 card, there's probably like 10,000 people that want the Moonbreon, right?
Oh yeah, I mean,
So, like,
when you look at it from purely a perspective of like demand, the demand's always going to be with modern, because people inherently want to go with the new thing. And anyone who's under probably, I want to say 25, doesn't relate to base set or neo set or rocket set. But I remember missing going to the London Knights game because I was sick, and my dad and brother coming home with Pokemon card pack, like base set packs, and me getting to open those. Like that's my draw to Pokemon. Like the art is cool and stuff like that. Like I like the art on the modern cards, but I also draw to vintage because that's what I'm into. And I think as people get more experienced in the hobby and solidify themselves of like, oh, I'm going to stick around in this, versus like, I'm just going to do this to make money. Because there's a lot of people right now who are just like, I'm just going to do this to make money. No care about the cards, no care about what's going on. I just want to make money. Those people are always going to go with what's easier to make money. The people who stick around will gravitate towards the older stuff and the vintage stuff, because that's what's always happened.
well,
It's the same
also
with
like
sports.
if you look at, collecting, also like value is within that collecting as well too. I know there's some cards that people are like niche, they don't care how much it's worth, right? And they just collect because they like the card. But I think there's a lot of investment nowadays. Oh, I want to invest in this card and that card and whatever it is. Like in my opinion on modern is that today is the lowest price you'll get for a PSA 10 for the modern cards in a long-term time frame, right? Not 6 months, but in like 5 to 10 year time frame, right?
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago when the Moonbreon was like what, $600-700, we were like, what the heck, this is expensive, right?
Yeah.
And then you would buy a PSA 10, it was like what, $800. People would be like, you're crazy and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then of course it does drop, right? Nothing's ever going up, all the time. Nothing is always going down all the time as well too. It's not never a straight up or a straight down. There's gonna be fluctuations in between, but over time wise, if you bought even at the high point in 2022 of the Umbreon, as of today, you're up quite a bit, right? And the same thing for the Latios in Team Up, right? I think
Yeah.
year and a bit ago, there was a huge pop. It went up to like $3,500 or something like that for the PSA.
See, but that's one that I look at and I'm just like, man, like that is a rug pull waiting to happen.
But like it went down to like what, under 2,000 for the PSA 10. But like in the long term, look at it today, like it's quite expensive, right? So like for
but
me,
if you look
like,
at it, like you gotta remember, people can manipulate things a lot more than you realize. Especially like people think that I'm a lot bigger than I am in terms of like what I'm capable of doing and that kind of stuff. But like people can manipulate this stuff a lot. Like I'm looking at the pop for PSA, right? Like the population for those cards is 1,700. Like the Latios and Latios is 1,761, right? And the average price is $4,750 US. With that being said, like that's just recent. Like it was as low as like 1,500, $2,000.
but I don't think they'll ever go back to that low though.
No, but at the same time, like if you have like $2,000, if you were buying these as of last year and you have 500 grand to spend, hypothetically, which is not big money in Pokemon for people that think it is. It's not big money for people who can do this. If you bought every PSA 10, because I know people who do this on the back end of certain cards, every PSA 10 that came out and you spend that entire 500 grand, and that is money that you don't need at that moment. You can use it over the next year to buy stuff, and you buy and look, like these sales in June of 2024 were $2,000 US.
Yeah.
And right, like 2,200, 1,900, like you buy every single one that comes up for auction that's available, buy it now. And now all of a sudden you've spent 500 grand and you have 100 of these or 200 of these of the 1,700 pop. You gotta assume that half of those cards are in people's collections and not going anywhere.
No, they're not.
Right. So you now effectively control almost 30% of the population.
No, for sure.
You list a card for $7,000. You have the same card. You're like, oh, he's selling it for $7 grand. I'm gonna list it for 6,500. And then someone's like, oh man, like these have gone up a lot. I'm gonna buy this one for 5,000. All of a sudden, the card went from 2,000 to 5,000, and that person, all he did was spend capital that he had set aside.
Yeah, but that's also like, we don't have that capital to spend, right? So like we aren't the ones to manipulate that market. But as a smaller time investor and things like that, it would be beneficial to pick up those cards when they are relatively low, because if all you need is that one person to do that to that card and you're set, right? They don't do anything. Like, you just hold the card and they'll figure out everything for you, and you just list it at, let's say they start listing at 7,000, you put it at 8 and just let it ride until it hits there, because it's going to happen, right? So like as of today, I know Prismatic is probably not the best to buy, I would say, but even look back,
I would not buy a Prismatic.
But like like the Magikarp, Paldea Evolved, right? Or like what else is there? What else? Obsidian Flame Charizard. Obsidian Flame Charizard is so hard to pull, or so hard to grade the 10.
Which one?
Obsidian Flames one, Charizard.
I thought Obsidian Flames was easy to pull.
It's easy to pull, hard to grade.
Oh.
Yeah. So like those cards are pretty much the lowest it will ever be, bar 20-30% in like a 3 to 5 year time frame, right? If you have this conversation about the Magikarp and the Charizard Obsidian Flames in 2030, those cards will probably be over $1,000. Well, I mean, Magikarp is, but like, it'll be more than double what their price is now.
There's that saying that's like the best time is to buy today, and if not, then it's tomorrow or whatever. Like
I think it's a matter of time frame, right? Everybody has such a small time frame and where they want to make money at, and they a lot of times lose money because they're so short-sighted on what that potential in that card could do.
Well, that's true. Like you look at it, like everyone, I laugh because like obviously I run the Pokemon group in Canada, and I see like, oh, like I'm looking to invest in this, I'm looking to invest in that. Like I want to hold it for 6 months, and I'm like, 6 months is not an investment. That's nothing. Like that's just you trying to make a quick. Like to me, I consider that a quick flip. If I can spend money and flip it in 6 months, like perfect, right? Like people forget that investing used to just be 5 to 7% a year, and that was fine. Pokemon, people are convinced it has to be like 20% a week. It's a different world, right? Like I bought all those special delivery Charizards at $20 a piece. I still have 800 of them, right? Like my time frame on that probably could be now.
Well, you sell half and you're laughing. You sell half and you're laughing at that point, right?
Right? Like it's not like I think people have lost sight of what an investment time frame is, and they just want to.
It's like the Van Gogh Pikachu as well, too, right? Like I think it's like what $400 a card raw right now, maybe 500 depending on if it's sealed, not sealed, whatever it is at that point, right? Like in my opinion, that Van Gogh, I know there's a lot of PSA 10s out there and everything like that, but that card should be a $2,000 card in 3 to 5 years, kind of thing.
But in my head, I know people that passed on master cases of Van Gogh Pikachus that were backdoored directly from Pokemon, and you're talking like
people had pallets of the Mario and Luigi's too.
I mean, yeah, it's hard. Like I always said, personally, like I always thought Van Gogh would be like a really cool crossover. But I also thought they lost a lot of the ability to do it by like doing one single card and not like imagine they made the Eevee. Imagine they did a series like they did the Munch Pikachu.
Oh, and they did, that would be over, right? Like that would be pretty insane.
But at the same time, like crossover wise, you don't see you don't see English Pokemon do that, right? Like English Pokemon never cross over
No,
and
they
does
don't.
stuff cool, right? Like
So the first
Japanese,
ever crossover that's that level, right?
yeah. Like sure, you get the like I guess you get the Adidas stuff and like that, but I don't
Not the
count that
same.
as a crossover. Like
Not the same.
whenever I talk to my distributor, I always like because you used to be able to like try to request orders and be like, oh, like can you make this product? And like if you could request to make a product essentially as a distributor, you just needed to take a quantity enough to justify it. And I always said like you should try to make an Olympic Pikachu wearing like a Canada jersey.
But they had those for like in the Japanese, right? Like the ones probably. Oh, they have like different versions of them.
They had like I mean they have some of the like soccer crossover and stuff, but like I think if they did like a legit Olympic crossover where they had like Pikachu wearing a Team Canada hockey jersey and Pikachu wearing something in the US and something in like just like a massive crossover, it would be crazy, but it would never come to fruition because as much as people think Pokemon cares about the collector, they care way more about people playing the game.
Pokemon don't need to do that. They just put like a stamp on there and then it'll go crazy, right? Like,
well, now don't forget, like we're in a market that is very like unprecedented right now, right? Like it's not like this most times, right? Like
well,
like this is rare.
Market Journey Together. What do you think about this hype on Journey Together now?
Oh man, I don't know. This is a weird one.
Just to be honest, I've been selling booster boxes for like $340, $350 Canadian a box, right? And they're like not negotiating, they're like going quick. Right? And then this is a brand new set. This is like almost getting to the point where it's close to that double MSRP. When we get to Destined Rival, it's gonna be more than double MSRP, right?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you look at it at almost every like block of Pokemon.
Sword and Shield.
You look at Sword and Shield. You look at Sun and Moon. You look at X and Y. Every set did the same. Everything does the same thing. Where the last 4 to 6 sets of the block, now being SV09, does this.
Isn't Steam Siege like a later set?
I think Steam Siege is super early. Let me check.
Crimson Invasion was a late set, wasn't it?
No, Crimson Invasion was 3.
3.
Let me look. Sorry, I'm also invoicing while I'm on this because I have 2,200 cards to invoice that got back from PSA. I guess so. Steam Siege was XY11.
Yeah,
but those are like the dead years of Pokemon. Like that was a very rough time. I don't know. Most people weren't around that at that point, but like I was turning down Steam Siege boxes at like $55 Canadian.
Yeah.
Right.
But like my perspective on Journey Together right now is that there's a lot of firsts, or like not necessarily first, but like things that they're bringing back, and also first as well too in this current market or in this modern era of cards. Right. The first time they're bringing back partner Pokemon, right, for a while now, and the first time we have a box topper in a booster box as well too, which we don't know. Pokemon never mentioned if it's going to be only the first sets or is going to be there for the second prints or third prints. We don't have that information yet.
Yeah,
I think Pokemon's also playing on that unknown aspect of it and trying to hype up this set as well too. But overall, I think that this set has like a lot of firsts in this modern era that makes this a crazy good set, right?
Yeah,
the Lilies or the Clefairies and things like that are nice. The Reshiram, I know it's going to be in every single booster box, but like that's a nice looking card.
I mean, keep in mind, like I don't know your allocation. We're both online. Like I don't have the Toronto store anymore. Adam and me broke up. We're still friends, obviously, but I just my commitment to going to Toronto and being a part of it was just it wasn't substantial enough to justify ownership, and I didn't want to hold Adam back. So I switched back just to online, but if you look on my website, I sell like I think I put Surging Sparks booster packs on there like a couple weeks ago,
right? For like one weekend and that's it.
Yeah, like and like the orders come and it typically sells out, and then I'm just too busy to put more stuff on the website. Like I have 60 surging boxes from original release. I'll get these booster boxes from Journey. I think I get just short of 100, maybe a little bit less, maybe overall. It used to be a lot more, but the more people who set up accounts, the less I seem to get. But in terms of like the set overall, I think the set has a ton of good potential and qualities. Don't forget all these tag teams were not popular even 8 months ago. Like they were, other than the Gengar Mimikyu. Like I base the demand on what I see from people sending me to get graded, right? So I never used to get anything other than the Gengar Mimikyu, and now I get all of them literally every week, a lot, right? So I think the partner Pokemon and having like big characters that have a lot of like current demand, like Lily and Iono, will make the set inherently more valuable. I think the artificial demand side of things is a little bit ridiculous because let's be real, the fact that the tariffs are affecting everything, the fact that more and more stores are getting stuff, there's a lot of artificial price pumping that's going on that is out of consumer and seller control. It gets put on us as stores that we're selling for more, but like if I made $30 a booster box previously, but I had to buy 240 Scarlet and Violet base boxes that I couldn't sell for cost, now selling those boxes that I have to buy at, I think we just got reorders on Paldea Evolved and I got one booster box. Yeah. Or two booster boxes, and it went from the restock price being 170 to now 200 and something dollars to restock it. Not even to do anything with it, just to get the boxes. So what am I going to sell the box at? I'm going to keep it at the exact same price that I currently have it at because A, I'm only getting two. So what am I going to do with it? Mm-hmm. And B, it's already at like, it's not like it's the 140 price mark that I'm used to for a booster box. Those might never happen again at this point, right?
Yeah, but as like thinking as like a regular investor of Pokemon, right? In sealed wise, right?
Yeah.
If I had to buy a set, right? Even if it's inflated, my time frame is like over 3 years. I think Journey Together would be a great set, even if it drops down to like $250, $200 a box wise. Even buying at $340, like if you look at Chilling Reign, Fusion Strike, they're at what, $500 right now? Fusion's like $500 right now. If you compare Journey Together and Fusion Strike, Journey Together is significantly better than Fusion Strike.
Right? If I was going to invest in something, I think I'd buy Champions Path ETBs.
Yeah, I mean
that's the only thing. I always try to buy things that people don't talk about.
Pokemon Go.
And no, you can stick with your Pokemon Go, but like Champions Path, I haven't heard of anything since the initial hype. That set is gone. Like it is cooked. Nobody talks about it. Nobody likes it. But the Charizard just silently climbs. And
it's a steady climb too.
It's nice. A steady climb, and it has two Charizards plus the promo in the ETB. But like, if I was gonna you could not convince me to buy a $340 booster box at release as a good investment.
If it's a long enough time frame,
as a long enough term, but like think of the capital that you could expend on anything else that would get you a better return. That booster box, from a percentage gain, to go from 340 to 500, you could buy almost any Scarlet Violet ETB and get the same percentage gain in less than half the time.
What if Journey Together is the Evolving Skies of this?
Sure, era? I expose myself to all sets just in case. Because I don't, like Rudy said in Alpha Investments, you don't want to be the person who misses. It's okay if you got to look at it. And now is again a different time. Like I always look at Pokemon as if I'm buying sets, because I don't publicly sell things, right? Like I don't sit there and I don't get my booster boxes, put them on my website, reorder them, put them on my website, sell them. I am the guy who buys them, throws them in my storage unit, lets them sit there, throws them in my garage, let them sit there, right? Like my inherent risk previously when I bought a booster box was I bought it for $140 plus tax, and it goes down to $110. Scarlet Violet was the worst thing on earth. It went down.
But that's an
Sword and
anomaly.
Shield base went down, right? Like Sword and Shield base was like $90 Canadian at one point.
Yeah.
If my risk of spending $120 to $140 is like it's going to go down 20%, or there's going to be the set that goes from 140. I remember turning down Evolving Skies at 140, by the way. Like when we got like a massive restock and you could open order it for a couple weeks at.
Well, we said no to Fusion Strike and Chilling Rain for like
Yeah.
110 or something like that.
Oh yeah,
right? So
yeah. Like I remember I bought.
Like, I think you literally asked me to buy them. I thought like one case. Like mine still says has your name on it because the shipping.
Yeah. But like so like your risk used to be a lot less, right? Like if your risk was 140 down to 110 or down to like 120 down to 90, that's only like you're only risking like 25% of your money. Whereas if you buy a box at 340, they pull the tariffs, they get a reprint boxes or 140, and they print the living hell out of it because they realized that the demand was there and it was artificially tampered with by Walmart not getting inventory, stores exploiting things, distros holding back stock, and it comes to a point where all of a sudden, hey, you can order 20 cases at $140. You're gonna lose half your investment. It'll go back up. Yes, it'll go back up. I'm not disagreeing with you on that side of things, but it's not gonna be good for you. Right?
Like, for my perspective is like I'm more like positive in the outlook of what the market's going to be. This boom has only really started since Surging Sparks in November, right?
Yep.
It's only been 4 months, less than 4 months, maybe even, that this boom has happened, right?
Yep.
So what's to say that this boom or this demand level doesn't cool off for the next 2 years within that print cycle of Journey Together? So this Journey Together will always be in that $300 range for his whole reprint life, right? Like,
yeah,
what if that happens? Because we don't know when it's going to come down, right? Everybody says 12 months, 18 months, or anything like that. It's only been 4 months. There's another year left if it's 18 months. And that's almost the full 2 years of what Journey Together print run is supposed.
I get what you're saying, right? But like I look at it
goes down.
I look at it more from a perspective of like, what are people capable of spending for fun? And like grading is a different thing because I always say if you can send a $30 card and spend $30 and sell it for $100, all you should do is do that because you're just making the money on doing that. If you know what you're doing and you're smart enough to do it, like that is free money that you have the opportunity. Not many things in life can you take and spend a little money and sell it for more, right? Like there's very few things
you can do. There's so much skill in grading though.
There's definitely nuances to it. But skill. I also know from my perspective that like my average customer grades 4 to 8 cards a month. And some of them, that's a lot of money to them. So $340 for a booster box, people are going to get fed up and they'll price themselves out or they'll move on, and it won't be the investment you want it to be strictly because people can't afford $340. Like even me looking back 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and I was buying one case of Vivid Voltage and I was like, holy cow, like this is like $650 for this case of booster boxes.
Well, I also see it as a little bit different because like you buy one booster box to rip yourself versus this being a group event. So I've seen a lot of people in the community here are having rip events, right? The 5 guys will come in and like, you know, pitch in $50 each and they will like buy Journey Together box and like everybody a few packs and then they rip it, right? Like $1 average wise, it's like $50.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm seeing so much more of this being a more.
But that's not an investment then. That's no longer
an
investment.
I'm just saying
that's you having fun.
I'm just saying that people spending $340 for a booster box is not really spending $350 on a booster box. It's realistically $50, $60, right? And like there's also so many people that, you know, go for a nice dinner on the weekend, spend $500, right? Go clubbing and spend $1,000 on drinks and things like that. Or like
I think access to money has also changed significantly because like I'm 31 and if you told me that I was gonna like, not me personally, but like some people I see, like some of the guys in the group are like 20 flipping like 50 grand. And I'm just like, that's wild to think about. Cause like even 10 years ago, when I was just, well, not even really into this, more into sports, like buying $100 to $200 card to me was crazy.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if it's relying on credit or if they just have access to way more capital than what most people do.
Like I never ripped a full booster box until like 5 years ago, probably. Right? That's how
because it was
crazy
a
it is,
terrible idea.
Because you
Now I
never had
sit
that much
here and I
money.
rip all the time because whatever.
But
Like,
every kid in the groups is ripping a full booster box nowadays, which is
or a case.
yeah, or a case, right? So like the demand for these sets has been increasing to a point where I don't think in the next 12 months we'll be able to catch up unless they do like a Rowing Skies where they reprint the heck out of it. Like,
Well, you got to keep in mind, Ricardo makes a good point in the chat, right? Like he says the Pokemon demand forecasting lags. Like you got to keep in mind, they may own Millennial Print Group, like Pokemon owns Millennial Print Group. They don't get unlimited access to printing. They rent those printers out to multiple other companies. To them, it's another investment entity. It's not just we can print as much Pokemon as we want, right? Like, so they're already printing. They probably already completed printing Destined Rivals, regardless of what people think. It's probably all packaged. It's probably getting ready.
oh yeah, it's done.
It's sitting in a warehouse.
How much it was already like 6 months ago.
Yeah. So like looking at demand now, you're gonna see these next sets. You'll see a lot of supply for the 30th anniversary. I guarantee it because they saw what happened with Celebrations. They printed the heck out of it, and then you watch that supply trickle into Scarlet Violet base and Obsidian and Paldea for the first, and it just rotted. Like it put so many stores out of business if people don't realize that, right? Like you got to keep in mind like the ability to scale on like a global scale is not easy. Right? Like it's not going to be quick and like they're going to get it wrong 99% of the time, and it only takes one bad set to put 20% of the stores out of business. Because most stores that you're looking at right now operate strictly on inbound, outbound cash flow, and if you mess with that, it's game over. Like it would take almost no work for them to get put out of business.
Well, SV Base put a lot of stores out of business, right?
Yeah,
like a lot of stores out of business. So
yeah,
like it's one of those indicators where if you could overprint, but SV, I think that whole beginning of SV Base era is a little bit of an anomaly because it also increased the base price of packs, right?
Yeah.
Why would you buy SV Base for more expensive than Lost Origins and Silver Tempest when they were already cheaper? So like, I think that was like a unique case in that aspect of it. But not even about Journey Together and stuff like that. But if you look at Surging Sparks, they never even said they're going to reprint more Surging Sparks. They only said about Prismatic.
No, we got an announcement that it was.
That's just for Prismatic, wasn't it?
No, the announcement was Paldea, Surging, Twilight, and
151.
Nope. Obsidian.
So like, how many sets can they reprint?
But like, you got to look at it like I'm very close with the people that I would deal with and like people in the US, and like typically these like a big reprint is enough to like change the market.
Well, that's what they have to do, right? Like they have to print the heck out of like, let's say Destined Rivals, print the heck out of that one. So like people won't have that FOMO of, won't be able to get one. If they're always on the shelf, it's also like a psychology thing as well too, right? If you're an average collector, you normally buy one ETB every month, but then you see that rare now, and then you see a Destined Rivals, you'll buy two instead of one, right?
Yeah.
Versus before, you would just buy one every single month versus you clearing out the whole shelf. So like collectors are also causing this as well too, because you wouldn't, buy so much so quickly in a short period of time versus when it was readily available. So if Pokemon does print Destined Rivals to the ground where it's readily available and you just keep buying them and they just keep having on shelves, there will be a point where their demand will pull back.
I think you underestimate the ability for people to manipulate the market, right? Like I can buy. I have the capability of buying out a Costco myself,
Oh yeah,
and I know there's a lot of people who have that ability too.
well for sure.
What makes you think that that won't change? Especially when, like, I know for a fact you sell a lot of packs to Singapore, and they don't have access to Pokemon in, so it's automatically going to have a higher price because they can't get. So like those people who are buying mass quantities have outlets for them, and with the rip and ship world that we live in now, like I don't know, man, like these people can move mass amounts of quantity for prices that to me make no sense, but I guess to each their own.
Well, we're going on about an hour here. Let's answer
Yeah.
a couple of questions that we missed on here, and then yeah, let's see here. What tools do you recommend for grading to start grading or help decide grading?
Oh, well, this is a
Do
weird
you
one
still have
because
that little plastic thing, that little grading
I
line?
never used it, but that's probably the only thing I'd recommend.
Yeah. So you get it
There's
on
like,
eBay, I think, pretty easily.
yeah,
Amazon, I think, has it as too. Like it's just a little like kind of like a clear plastic sheet that has like a little square outline. You put the
yeah,
card into there and you can see like left to
centering
right,
really only
centering.
helps with centering. Honestly, it's a lot about, again, just being involved. Like I don't use anything. Like I can look at a card most times and within like
Well, I don't really
five
look,
to ten
yeah, same
seconds
thing,
know
right?
it's gonna get a 9 or 10.
But as a newer person, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a new app. It's like that centering app of it,
Yep.
right? So like everybody talks about it, how great it is and everything like that. So I tested that out. Like as good as it is, it's only as good as the angle where you point your phone at, right? If you
Yep.
change the angle of your, because I was testing this, I was trying to use it, but I was testing it. If you tilt your phone one way, it's like 45-55. You tilt your phone the other way, it's like 60-40. You're like,
Yep.
you have to have that perfect centering of your phone, holding it perfectly still to have that guaranteed perfect
The
alignment.
trick is you just buy
A lot.
a lot of one card and then send them all, and then you get the 10 that you want and you sell off the rest. That's what you do. I
I
just
mean, that
got
makes sense.
those.
People have that amount of funds for
I
it,
just
but
got those all from Japan. These are actually a good deal. My Japanese, the guy who I deal with in Japan was selling them for $29. $29 for the deck or $35 for just the promo. I was like, that's a terrible deal. Why don't you buy me 30 of the decks and open them and keep everything and just mail me the cards? He's like, okay. So that was beneficial for me for once.
and the next question, do you think alt arts in Journey Together will do well? I mean, kind of brushed up on this. I think that people think that the Lily's going to be the most expensive, but I think some of the other cards are going to overtake it.
I would say that most times the card that you think is going to be the biggest card doesn't end up being the biggest card.
Well, in Japan, the Lily is the most expensive.
Yeah.
But
But in English, we
I
don't
don't
have
think
the
it can.
same response to like
Yeah.
the waifu tax that the Japanese market has.
Yeah, let me see.
They seem to like the trainer cards a lot more. Thanks, JD. And yes, I always pray that we get the one out of one, the one of one. Me and JD bought a bunch of wrestling cards together because we both have a thing for The Rock. So after 8 years, he's finally going to get them and probably keep the auto without me.
I think the card is going to be Salamence.
I think Salamence slaps, to be honest. But I'm really bad at gauging what modern is going to do.
Or the Zoroark.
Like, yeah, Zoroark to me, like, and Zoroark, the gold one, I pulled it in Japanese. I was like, that card looks sick. But their textures are always better than English, so hard to say.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I don't think that Lily is. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't think that Lily's going to be as crazy.
The Lily's Clefairy?
Yeah. You think
Which
it's going to be as? You think it's going to be the number one?
Which one are you talking about?
The SIR one.
Oh, the green.
They're like on a field, and the Clefairy's like, yeah.
And she's like kneeling. Yeah. I mean, the hard part is that they're making the one a promo in the milk carton, right?
Yeah.
So I think whenever they do that, it kind of pulls down the value. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, let's have a take. If you had $500 right now to invest in a Pokemon sealed set, what would you do? What set would you buy?
$1,000 to invest in right now.
$500. Let's say a little bit lower. $500.
$500 to get as much as you could of like one thing, like sealed product.
Like, what is your
pack?
like in 5 years you would sell this product? What would you buy? What set would you buy to invest?
JD says Terrestrial Festival. Are we doing Japanese and English? Because Japanese is way different.
Oh, where did he go? We lost Kevin here. EX pack. We lost Kevin, so he doesn't want to give a take. He's like, nah, I'm out. I don't want to be a part of this. Pack of Power Keepers. Is he back? Is he back? Nope. He is gone. He is gone. Well, if my personal take is, if it's Japanese, I would go for like V-Star Universe. I think that set, I think it's a Crown Zenith of the Japanese set, and I think that's super underrated and undervalued right now. And I think it's gonna go up like crazy, similar to the tag team, what it was before when, you know, tag team was readily available, the tag team GX was readily available, and everybody is just ripping them like crazy until it wasn't, and now it's super expensive. So I think the V-Star Universe is gonna be quite expensive in the near future. And if you look at English, I think once we get, or we should be getting, because we're still in the window, Paldean Fates. Paldean Fates is a set that I think is gonna go to the moon eventually, and I think that, oh, he's back.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. My wife called me and it got kicked off.
So I said, if it's Japanese, it's going to be V-Star Universe, because I think it's going to mimic what Tag Team GX is going to be.
Okay.
And for English, I think any Paldean Fates products, because I think it's going to reprint this year and the price is going to drop down a little bit. And I think that set is amazing.
Okay. Mine is Unigaba packs. Because I think like Japanese, like the Japanese, like EV1s. Or, yeah, I would say those probably.
Is that really considered a sealed product?
It counts. It counts. And well, from a strictly sealed product thing, I think the Precious Collector is a good price. And I think the Yokohama deck has come down enough that it makes it worthwhile. Because that Pikachu is gorgeous.
Like $200 now for a deck?
I think it's 170.
That's tempting.
I bought a bunch when they were 300 like a dummy, but I graded them all. Precious Collector is just, it's hard because it's so big. Yeah. English, not really a lot of good stuff. If you can get this Lily's Clefairy.
No, you said Champion's Path, right? You love Champion's Path.
I love Champion's Path from an investment side. I wouldn't throw money at it right now, but if you can get the Lily's Clefairy milk carton thing, I think it'll be good, depending, just because the packs already are so expensive, and I think the promo will do well. I think that would be good. Pretty much anything you can get at a good price right now is probably a good investment long term.
Yeah.
Well, but I gotta get going. I gotta pick up my kid from daycare. So
we're gonna wrap this up. Let's open your pack, because it is the last pack. I have my SV base.
I got two. Yes, I thought you had Pokemon Go.
I mean, I do, but I don't really want to open it. Just keep it sealed.
Are we doing a? I don't know how to do a pack trick. I don't know either. 3 packs. Look, I got destroyed.
Let's see. Ooh. And absolute garbage.
Game over. You got wrecked.
I want to see that Charizard come up.
Let's see.
No. Garbage.
Oh, look, it was behind. Oh.
Reverse pack switching.
Reverse pack switching. You got to put the hits back in the pack. All right, guys. It was nice talking. We're gonna do this at least once a week for the for a while.
And yeah, go from there. Any suggestions, any questions or anything, leave it in the comments and make sure you follow us and you grade with KD.
Yeah, grade with me. Maybe we'll do some coupon codes or something eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, drop any questions you have in the chat. Feel free to send questions to me or Francis on Facebook if you have us, and we will get them in queue for the next one.
And we'll see you soon. Bye.
All right, bye.